Hello everyone, my name is Dale Blassingame. I'm a lecturer here in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and today I am going to walk you through the basics of Twitter. We'll go ahead and call it Twitter 101, and for some of y'all who are active on Twitter, some of this stuff might seem elementary, but hopefully you'll at least pick up a few things, and if not, you should at least hear some things that will in turn help you pass along the value and the purpose behind Twitter to your students, especially in the FDOM class. It's really important that we help them understand the value and the purpose behind Twitter, so hopefully you'll gain that today through this quick Twitter 101 lecture. So first things first, the most basic thing, once you've created your account, you need to pick your handle, and your handle is the username that you select for your Twitter account. If you're lucky enough to have a somewhat unique name, you might still be able to have your own real name available. If that's the case, I would go ahead and grab that immediately. For those of you who have a fairly common name, or for your students who have a common name, their name probably isn't going to be available. So if they're just getting on Twitter, then you have to help them go through the backup options. Do they have an online persona that they portray on the internet? Get creative. Do they have a nickname that they might be able to go by? They might be able to use an underscore, but you typically want to avoid underscores if at all possible because they're kind of hard to type and you lose people some way. Whatever name they pick, make sure they don't use sexual innuendo, and this goes for you as well. You know, the Big Boy 69 accounts like that. You know, obviously those don't portray you in the best light. You wouldn't want a potential employer to see those, and we likewise don't want our students to be using those types of names, obviously, as well. The final thing I have on there is avoid strings of numbers. This would be like Dale 28455, which is my Texas State user account, but no one's going to remember that stretch of numbers, that string of numbers. So try to pick something logical that goes with your name. Hopefully your real name is still available. I'm one of the fortunate ones that I didn't register my real name right away, but I was still able to get it a couple of years later. So check that first. If not, go through those backup options. Whatever you do, make sure it's professional and something you wouldn't be embarrassed for people to see or know, because that's the whole point of Twitter, is to connect with other people. And if you're embarrassed about your handle or your username, you're obviously already defeating the purpose. So that's the first step. Pick a quality handle. And one thing to be aware of, your handle will apply to search results. So this is, for instance, I just Googled myself right now, and my Twitter handle is number 2 on the list of Google results for my name. So this is why picking a quality handle is important, especially with avoiding the sexual innuendo. If you have a potential employer who Googles your name and that's one of the first things that pops up, they instantly have red flags about your account. So pick something professional that will not embarrass you down the road and that you're good with sharing with other people. From there, it's time to create your profile, and your profile is a couple of different parts. You probably know that Twitter allows you 140 characters per tweet, but your bio actually has 160 characters on it. So your profile includes not only your profile picture, your header photo, but the little bit of bio that you see there where it says I'm a digital journalism teacher, an Emmy winner, and I want to be a park ranger. Right there, you want to tell your story quickly. This is where you let people know what you're into. So I do love talking about digital journalism. I do occasionally talk TV news still, which is my former profession, and I also love talking about travel and national parks and stuff like that. So my bio is really short. It might be a little too short, actually. I still have plenty of characters to work with there, but it tells my story. Those are the 3 things that I love to talk about more than just about anything, especially on Twitter. So I'm pretty confident with that. I used to, quick example, I used to have a line in there about watching every Law and Order episode in order, which is also something I'm doing. I need a life, obviously, but you'd be amazed at how many people contacted me to either ask questions about Law and Order or ask me which episode I was on. So your bio matters. People actually check that. They can find you through search results that way. So make sure you're writing stuff in there that those are the people you want to talk with. The stuff you talk about there, that's the connections you want to make on Twitter. So that's really important. So you need to tell your story quickly. Always include a link. If you don't have a personal blog, link to the Texas State website. You should have your own personal blog. But have a link there. That's a valuable link space that lets people know what you're about. So you'll see I have a link to my personal Tumblr account. That's where I blog about hiking and travel for the most part, but I also talk about some tech issues there as well. You'll see I have a profile photo and a header photo. Those are both photos that I took myself. Texas State has a bunch of really great marketing photos. So if you don't have anything that you really want to use for the header photo, which is the background photo you see of the mountains, those are mountains in Montana right there. There are a bunch of great shots of Old Main that I sometimes switch to when I start of a new semester, stuff like that. So just do a search for Texas State marketing wallpapers, and you'll find plenty of those photos. And the last little bit about your profile, you'll see it says I'm in New Braunfels, which is where I live. Make sure you name your city. A lot of things we see, and especially with our students, you can pass along this information. A lot of them will write the 512 or ATX or SMTX, stuff like that. That doesn't help people find you. If somebody is in Las Vegas and searching for people, they don't know our area code here. So make sure they're writing Austin or San Marcos or New Braunfels or wherever it is they live. And the same thing goes for you. Put your city there. A little bit about Twitter lingo. Twitter really has revolutionized a couple of particular signs of punctuation or signs of our digital language that we use, most notably the @ symbol, which for years was associated with email, and now it's kind of moved over to the Twitter sphere there. But the at sign is the symbol of a username. So whenever you see @ and then a string of letters or a name, that means it's somebody's username. So @DaleBlastingame would be my Twitter handle. Tweet is not just a verb, but it is also a noun. So you send a tweet or you tweet to somebody. You don't say you Twitter, or I Twittered you this morning. You tweet at somebody, or I tweeted about the Cowboys game this weekend, something like that. So tweet is both a noun and a verb. A mention is when you talk to somebody else. So a mention can either be at the beginning of a tweet, it can be in the middle of the tweet. Whenever you write somebody else's username, that lets that other user know, hey, I'm talking to you, so that is considered a mention. If you see RT, that stands for retweet. That is when you either automatically through the mobile app or manually through something like TweetDeck or another third-party app, that is where you pass along somebody's tweet. You're not making any changes to it. You're just simply retweeting what they said. You're passing along either maybe a funny joke or some observation they made. Now, MT is very similar. That stands for modified tweet. This is a retweet where you have to change something a little bit. So maybe you had to cut off a few words for brevity's sake, or you wanted to add a snarky response at the beginning, and so you changed the tweet a little bit. The important thing with MTs is you can't change the context of what the person was trying to say. So if you're going to retweet them and you're going to add something at the beginning and cut something out of it, make sure you're not eliminating something that is important to what the person was trying to say. You always want to make sure and maintain the context of their message. A DM is a direct message. This is a private message that is sent between two people. I say private. As you've seen in the news, there are plenty of times where direct messages get out to the public, so always be careful with what you're sending in DMs. But in theory, they are only seen by the person sending it and the person receiving it. And that's different from a mention where people will see people who follow. If the username is at the beginning of a tweet, everyone who follows those two users will see the interaction going on between them. So that's the difference between a mention and a DM. Hashtag, as you see on the right-hand side, the pound sign has now been relabeled as the hashtag. And what it boils down to, hashtag is a searchable term. So hashtags are incredibly valuable during big events. South by Southwest, for instance, if you follow the hashtag of SXSWI for the interactive, or our SXTX state hashtag, stuff like that, it groups all the tweets that have that hashtag together. So for instance, during the Super Bowl or during the Oscars or the Grammys, you can follow along with everyone, even if you're not following them, just by clicking the hashtag. So you can find funny things people are saying, find out what other people are saying about an event. That is the true purpose of a hashtag. A hashtag is not supposed to be the the punchline of a joke that a lot of people use it, the hashtag sorry, not sorry, stuff like that. The true purpose of a hashtag is a searchable term. Favorite, you may have seen, depending on the service you use for Twitter, twitter.com or an app like TweetDeck or something like that, you have a star on any tweet if you hover over it. If you click that star, that labels it as a favorite of yours. Now, people use this in a couple of different ways. Some people use it kind of like the Facebook like, to use a reference there. It just let somebody know, hey, I thought that was funny, or I appreciated what you said there. So that's a common purpose of it. Others, like myself, I use it as a bookmarking service. So whenever I want to go back and read something, I favorite it, and then I go back and check my favorites, and that's the list of tweets that I favorited for the day, and it just reminds me at the end of the day or the end of the week to go back and read those links, and it serves as an archive of sorts for me. And the final little bit of lingo I want to go over is the HT. This stands for a couple of different things, each meaning the same thing. One is either hat tip or heard through. This is where somebody told you about something and you end up tweeting about it, and you just want to give them a little bit of credit for pointing you in that direction. So if my friend Joe told me about an article about, some digital news agency adding jobs, like, hey, FDOM students, check out this list of jobs. I'd post the link, and then at the end, I'd do an HT at Joe Ruiz. That just gives Joe credit for, hey, he pointed this along, he passed this along to me, and I appreciated it. So that's what an HT means. A few of the best practices, when you start teaching FDOM, you're going to get questions from students who may not be the biggest fans of Twitter, and they're going to say, well, I don't get it, I don't care what people are saying, stuff like that. So here are a couple of the things that I always pass along to students, and some of them might help you as well. The most important thing on Twitter is to listen. Find interesting people and concentrate on listening. So once you read the Gary Vaynerchuk Crush It book, he spends a lot of time talking about this. He says the number one question he gets from people is, well, I don't know what to say. What do I say on Twitter? And he tells them, don't worry about talking at all. Just worry about listening at first. So find people you are interested in, find topics you are interested in, find thought leaders in those topics, and just concentrate on listening. Now, whether that's a day, whether that's half a day, whether that's a week, whether that's a month, it depends on you and your own preference for how you use Twitter or how quickly you want to get into it. But concentrate on listening first. Slowly begin to interact. So jump into conversations. It's just like when you go to a bar and you're there by yourself. You don't immediately run in and start screaming at everybody. You go to the bar, you might overhear somebody talking about something that you know something about, you turn and you kind of butt into the conversation a little bit, but you ease yourself into the conversation. You don't walk in and start screaming with a bullhorn. One thing you really want to do is make sure you slowly build your base of accounts to follow. If you join Twitter and you like the max amount, 1,999 followers, and you only have 14 followers at that point, Twitter's going to potentially flag your account as spam. So you want to keep that ratio between followers that you have and people you're following fairly similar, at least at the beginning. What I recommend to students is, find 50 people at first, and then as you get maybe 25 followers, find another 25, and just keep it to where that ratio is in check so that you're not following a ton of people and you have no followers, so that Twitter doesn't flag your account as spam. You always want to use the correct lingo that we just went over. It just shows people that you know what you're doing and you understand Twitter and you understand what's going on. A good life rule in general, but it also applies to Twitter: use proper etiquette. Don't be an idiot or don't be an a-hole. Be a good person, be nice, be friendly, be positive, and that goes a long way when you're interacting with people, especially in a medium where you probably don't know the person that you're talking to. So being polite and using proper etiquette is nice, and it's a good thing to try in life in general. I talk about the Goldilocks principle when tweeting. Another question you're going to get from students is, well, how much am I supposed to tweet? There's no good answer for that. It's all relative. So try the Goldilocks principle. For some person it might be too little, might be too much. You find that middle ground. it's going to be a personal feeling that they get where they just know, okay, I think I'm in the groove here. I know personally when I started on Twitter, I tweeted way too much, and that lasted for a long time. I finally feel like I'm in a good groove in terms of the amount of the amount of tweets I send every day is probably, 5 or so, but it's personal for me, and it might be different for you. It depends on your community. It depends on the types of topics you're talking about and the people you follow and the people you interact with. So there's no good hard rule when it comes to that. Just try it out, and you're going to find the best thing. And finally, like I just mentioned a little bit ago, be polite and positive. We all have that friend who's super negative and all they do is complain. We don't like that in real life, so you definitely don't like that on Twitter and social where you're choosing to follow someone. Just be polite, be positive, and you tend to have the best interactions with people. So here are a couple other things to consider in terms of making your Twitter account really stand out, and hopefully these are things you can pass along to your students as well. Here at Texas State, we have a very strong follow back community. If you've never heard of follow back, these are things like the Texas State Follow Train, Texas State Follow Back Team. There are plenty of these where it's just people get together, they all follow each other, they grow their Twitter accounts really quickly, but what do they get out of it? You really get nothing other than, maybe a couple hundred extra followers. You're never going to interact with those people. It's going to do you no good other than the appearance that you have a lot of followers or that you quickly gained your followers. So I recommend to students to avoid these things. I would rather have fewer followers but more quality interactions than a lot of followers and no interaction. So if they ask you about those, there's nothing wrong with them. It's not a bad thing. I just recommend against them because I think I would rather go about it the harder route, which is actually gaining quality interactions and quality connections on Twitter than just getting them because somebody else told me to follow 50 accounts and I'd get 50 follows out of it. I also want to avoid humble brags. This is one of my favorite, where a girl tweeted, "No makeup on, hair's not done, toothpaste stains down my shirt, pretty sure I'm not wearing deodorant, and I still get hit on." Such is life. We all have that friend who does nothing but humble brags, and they get kind of annoying really quickly. So don't do that. Again, be positive, be polite, and you don't have to worry about the whole humble brag identity. The Rock can talk in third person. We can't, so don't try to do anything silly like that. Have a genuine voice and, be yourself. We don't talk about ourselves in third person, or at least most of us don't, so don't try to do it on social. That doesn't quite make sense. And finally, like I just said, that genuine voice, be yourself on Twitter. If you try to have a persona or you try to have an identity on Twitter and then you're not that way in real life, again, the whole purpose of Twitter is to make connections with people. Connections that could end up being personal connections. They could hopefully end up being professional connections. But if you're trying to portray somebody that you're not, when you actually do meet those people in real life or those connections end up leading to something, now you've set up this trap for yourself where, well, they kind of think I'm this, daredevil, and I actually just sit in my apartment all weekend. So be yourself, have a genuine voice. We're all about building a personal brand here and showcasing what you can do and showcasing that you know how to use social networks in a positive, professional manner will go a very long way in providing those connections and hopefully leading to big things. I mean, we've had great things happen just through Twitter with our grad students, especially, but with our undergrads as well. So we really want to stress that Twitter is the first step in terms of building that personal brand, showing people you know what you talk about.